Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We've got the whole squad here with you today. All four of us, Jesse, Rudo, AJ, Megan, coming to you live. Going to be talking more NHL playoffs because, like, what is going on? Everything is popping off.
It's been great.
It's a little bit wild. Lots of stuff to get into, though. Starting with the Eagles season did come to an end Friday night in spectacularly catastrophic fashion.
Are you under attack right now?
But honestly, they deserve the call out. They were not the significantly worse team. They made boneheaded mistakes more than once, allowing shorthanded goals in this series. I don't want to say they deserve the fate they got because Joey Decord just played extremely well too, but they did not get production where they needed it. I still have a lot of excitement around this Eagles group moving forward, but this season also just needed to end for the Eagles in a way because they've been dealing with a lot of the same chaos that the Avs have been dealing with. It felt like they were just finally beginning to find their footing, but this is a group that had 5 new players dropped in the lineup at the end of the season. So they enter the playoffs with these guys who just got here and played in 7 games. Yep. That is a lot. It's a challenge. We don't have to talk about it that much.
To me, what that means is the entire Avs organization, sorry, Utah Grizzlies, is now done.
Yeah, that was sad for them too. They also kind of blew their playoff run.
Yep.
I don't revel in this. I'm sorry. I sound excited.
Hey, look, the way this season went for the Avalanche organization, maybe we should be excited that it's all in the past. They can move on from all of it entirely going forward. Is anyone on the Avs like out? I know Mikko's going to IIHF, but is there anyone else actually doing stuff? As it sounds like Arturi Lehkonen has a broken toe. It's just been such a rough year. Are they all sitting at home recovering, or are they out on a golf course yet? That's my question.
I think they're all at home. My guess is they're all taking a beat, taking a second. Another week maybe, and well, I know EJ and Newhook and McDermott were out at a concert at Red Rocks over the weekend. So I think like they are starting to decompress a bit, but the fact that all those guys are still in town tells you they haven't
gone
fully
home,
settled into the off season yet.
Fair enough. Not gonna push it too much on that one because this season was just brutal. That's all. That's all there is to say about it at this point.
I was honestly surprised that Mikko was going to the World Championships.
Too. I thought there was going to be 0 Avs at it.
I did too, which I would have understood.
It would have been revealed in the injury report we may or may not get that Rantanen had been battling something. I just had this sneaking suspicion, but I'm glad he wasn't.
Take your dubs where you can get them, I guess, at this point. Unfortunately, the Avs are not in the playoffs anymore for whatever this is. I want to start here with the second round. Why are there so many goals?
So that's hilarious you say that, Rudo, because I was thinking about that last night. Like, we're seeing a lot of blowouts, like swinging blowouts. Like the Tampa-Toronto series started with one. We now have seen it a little bit in Dallas-Seattle, where like Dallas kind of ran away with game 2. Then Dallas came back, or then Seattle came back, just blew their doors off in game 3. Carolina, it's really weird.
Carolina, New Jersey's been 3 blowouts.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just odd because usually this time of year is when you see everything get tighter and the scores get lower. It's a lot of 2-1, 3-2. And so I don't know if this is maybe just like I do think that part of this is there's 8 teams left. 7 of them have huge question marks in net on any given night.
Yeah, I think if you go and you look at the goaltending that is left in this postseason, kind of goes against what we have known to be true in postseason hockey for a long time of good defense, great goalie, you advance. Those are the things that scare you in the postseason. And then you look at this group and you're just like, they're goalies.
And you almost wonder if it is going to come down to like the new kind of thing is like who sticks to their structure the best.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like that, and I'm sure we'll get into Dallas, Seattle, but like
we will.
Seattle has like they've looked great through 3 games against Dallas, and it's it's because it's been a continuation of what I thought they did so well in the first period, where they're committed to what they're doing. Like, they're bought into their systems. They're dialed in. Every guy's pulling the rope. They're getting scoring from literally everyone. I wonder if that's the new war of attrition. Who gets pulled out of their system the least?
I thought too, like, of the goaltenders left, Ottinger has looked more human, but this is also a round that doesn't have a Vasilevsky or Shesterkin in it, and those are usually where you start to see those caliber goaltenders ramping things up. They're no longer a part of this conversation. I think that's part of it, and I think too, of some of the teams still in this, they're really prolific teams like Edmonton. That is what makes them successful in the postseason, is being able to score. And then to a different extent, Toronto in the first round, this was true. Toronto's experience, like, I find it interesting that the series that is kept the closest in terms of the goal margin is the Toronto-Florida series.
Yeah.
How
Weirdly different.
How much of this is, hey, the new normal? NHL scoring has been way up this year as it is. And how much of this is a freak thing where you've seen Joe Pavelski, Leon Draisaitl both have 4-goal games on the same night?
It was on back-to-back nights and their teams lose.
Right.
It was back-to-back nights? I thought it was even in the same night.
I thought it was same night.
2 nights, one right after the other.
It was back-to-back.
Okay.
I almost think that, honestly, Rudo, like, I think the answer is yes to, like, your question.
Yeah.
Or I just think it's both. Like, you're seeing, again, we joked about it. Like, Jared McCann scored 40 goals this year. The NHL has opened up. I don't know what, I can't put my finger on exactly what it was that changed going into last season.
Because it was up last year, too.
Yeah, the NHL is just, it's opened up, and we keep waiting for, like, oh, here's where the games start to get a little bit tighter, whether it be different checkpoints throughout the season or into the playoffs, and it's just not happening. I think part of that is you have more guys with speed and skill than ever. There's an emphasis now, partially being led by the Avs, of run offense through your defense. You no longer have the bottom half of your forward core being made up of kind of muckers and grinders, and your bottom pairing defensemen just being full stay-at-home shutdown guys. Like, every player on the ice has to be able to contribute to some extent.
Yeah, this is where I think the big change in the league has been.
and
The emphasis on skill.
The emphasis on skill. And then the Avs really, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this league handles goaltending in the future, because the Avs have kind of set a blueprint over the last 3 years that
Going a little bit cheaper.
if you're good enough
yeah.
structurally, you can get really good goaltending
if
out
you
of
spend
almost
all
anybody.
that money, you spend $5 million on goaltending, you spend the other 80 on the guys in front of them.
Yep.
You can give that guy a comfortable environment to play in.
Yep.
You don't need him to be special.
You don't need him to be
Now,
special.
if you have one of those guys, you keep him and you pay him and you do whatever. You're fine there.
Because it means something to have someone that can steal
Yeah,
games.
absolutely. And it's just easier if you have them. But if you don't, find a guy that fits your system. Find a guy that fits kind of what you do, how you play in front of them. A guy that you think is going to, a guy that your scouting staff thinks has the tools to slide in and be effective as a starter, and the mentality and all these things that you like. And, go from there. Now, the Avs have been good at it. If all the teams started trying to do this,
Well, but I think, and
good
so
luck.
this is why I think that it won't always stay this way, but I do think this will be the trend over the next several years of try to get by with good enough goaltending. And
I also think that when you add in 2 teams, you have 4 additional goaltenders in the league. That you're now spreading that
Sure.
talent out even more. So you are talking about a couple of guys that maybe weren't in the NHL before. Are Laurent Brossoit is a great example of this. A guy that was a backup and a borderline-ish guy, and now he's starting on a playoff team.
yeah, and it's again, the part of the reason why I think it won't stick this way, but I do think teams will try for the next couple of years, because we all saw, like, that Avs team, the 22 Cup champ Avs team, like, that was such an elite roster, like top to bottom, all 4 lines, all 3 pairs. They all did what they were supposed to. They all chipped in the right way. They were all bought into the system. Like, the third period of Game 6 of the Cup final to me was like the ultimate Like you could, if people ask in the future, like, what was that team like? I'm just going to show them that third period.
It's a masterclass.
And be like, count the number of mistakes you see this team make. trying to hold off a 2-time defending Stanley Cup champ to win a championship of their own. It's phenomenal. And what I think teams will eventually realize, even the Carolinas, who are, I think, very good teams, very solid defensively, that if you're not perfect, your goaltending does matter a whole hell of a lot. And like you said, the Avs made a couple mistakes, and that's where you got Darcy Kemper bailed you out because he's on the higher end of that just be good enough behind a good structure. And I think you're seeing teams like New Jersey. You saw it with Minnesota. To your point, Megan, I think you're seeing it with Toronto. The New Jersey, absolutely. Where when you do show cracks and it is kind of a 50-50 coin flip back there. Couple pucks end up in the back of your net, and then these games are just starting to roll downhill, which I think has maybe been the craziest part for me, is how quick games are getting away from teams.
I do want to circle back in, but I kind of wanted to bring this conversation to this point of, for a long time, the NHL has been considered the league that has the most parity of the big sports. And that's, due to RNG and randomness of the sport, maybe being a bit of an equalizer and all of that. But when you look at this year's playoffs, and I know over the past few years, a handful of years ago, there's the wild card chaos squad, all that stuff. It does happen pretty often. But this year's round 1, no sweeps, only one series that ended before 6 games, a significant number of game 7s, and now in round 2, outside of the Toronto-Florida series, which we'll get to, you have a bunch of back and forth series like we were talking about. Is the NHL the most competitive it's ever been?
The road team thing is another stat you didn't list there, which road teams have had a phenomenal playoff so far through a round and a half.
Maybe.
Probably. I think the addition of 2 teams over 6 years spreads out that talent.
Sure.
And with the way that the expansion drafts were set up to make them more competitive, you're not talking about.
You're taking real talent off
exactly.
teams now.
Those are you look at Seattle's lineup and you're like, dude, those guys were all important players elsewhere before they got there. So you are talking about like they those are 2 new teams that have leveled the field a little bit, because if you did a dispersal draft and you mashed all those players from those 2 teams back into the 30, a couple of teams would really level up quite a bit.
That's a great point.
Fair.
So, I mean, I do think that is playing a role in it. And I think I think if other leagues are looking at that and talking about expanding, we've seen the NBA and MLB both have that conversation. This is one of the selling points. Is you say, look at this postseason.
It's crazy. Yeah.
This is, in terms of betting, it's a nightmare. But in terms of entertainment, it's great.
Well, and the other thing too, AJ, because I agree with everything you're saying, and then I do think you also have to take into account the NHL is the only league with a hard cap. They're the only league with a hard cap. There's no luxury tax penalty, none of that. There's no restructuring.
LTIR makes it soft, but yeah.
But I mean, really,
it's a lot harder than being able to cut $20 million.
Right.
Totally.
At the end of
between
season,
the seasons, it's by far the hardest of the caps.
Right. I was
yes.
saying
it is the most stringent.
And at the end of the season, really, the LTIR thing doesn't come into like that sweeping of play. It's just been the last couple of years. There's been some glaring examples, but I agree with you. It's the combination of the fact that you added 2 new teams. And you can only spend so much money. So, like, these 2 brand new teams.
The cap point is a great one, too, because it hasn't gone up in several years with the COVID thing.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about if there had been no COVID cap and the Avs were allowed to spend
$95 million right now.
They would probably still have Brandon Saad, and they might still have a Nazem Kadri.
Yeah.
And how different do we feel about this most recent Avalanche postseason if they have those 2 guys in their lineup
and all the other injuries stay the same?
All the injuries stay the same. How different is the result? Are Brandon Saad and Nazem Kadri the difference between 1 goal across 7 games?
At least.
Maybe.
I can almost guarantee.
We don't know that for sure, but you sure would have liked to have seen them take that chance.
The way the Avs season 1, Kadri breaks his leg and Saad breaks a hand in that series.
Yeah, and they probably do it in the same scrum in front of the net.
Yeah.
And don't score.
Kadri's shot that like fractures his finger hits Brandon Saad.
Yeah, exactly. It ends up a blocked shot. Yeah.
But no, just like the COVID part, that's a great point, AJ. Like there have been a lot of teams that have been forced to kind of redistribute some talent.
They've just said we can't keep this guy. Devon Taves is an av for a reason.
Right. And it's been interesting because I think you've seen teams and GMs like they've upped their inventiveness. So like they've been able to remain competitive. Then you have a team like Seattle that really wasn't good last year.
Yeah.
And through free agency and trades and waivers and things like that, were able to really add to their group this year.
Yeah.
And like even Winnipeg, who really kind of got the most dominated in the, of any team in the playoffs, like those games, like they weren't all bad games. Like they had the wheels come off a couple times, but like they were good competitive games. And
great double overtime game that swings that series, in my opinion.
And Jared Bednar talked to us about it, Megan, with Seattle, that it's a 100-point team. Like the gap from the top to the bottom of the playoffs just isn't as wide as it is in other leagues.
I think it's a combination of all of these things. The cap, the expansion, and honestly, more generally, technology. It's advanced stats being used in more organizations and tracked over time to figure out formulas, types of players, types of events in hockey that work for their team, the identity that they're trying to cultivate helps for them to scout players, I think, too. And also just in terms of this being such a rigorous sport, recovery and what sort of health options are available to players. I think this is something that a lot of athletes are really taking seriously around the league. I hear of a lot. I think athletes in general too, this is probably true, but I think it keeps the NHL competitive alongside these things, just with technology improving, because with goal scoring up on the whole, I think part of it is meeting a demand because goalies get bigger, they're athletic, the goal scorers then need to focus on their skill. And I think that there's just a lot of technology available for that to be something that they really dig into in the offseason.
I think this is a great point. To use an example from the Avs, if you've been around for a while, I talk about this a lot. Play you never see in the NHL anymore. Ryan Smith going down the left wing, winds up a clapper from the outside off angle, right into the goalie's chest 99 times out of 100.
Yeah.
And NHL teams just don't run that play anymore because they
shot
have the statistics.
Wide because the guy's trying to pick that corner, and it ends up a self-clear and is the Eric Johnson special.
Okay, well, that's bad play. But you've seen a vast reduction in plays like that because teams now understand this is a negligible scoring chance. Well, it doesn't count for anything.
You would rather value the puck differently. Look at the overtime winner in Florida-Toronto last night.
Yep.
Where Aaron Ekblad makes that play up, and Sam Reinhart, instead of just dumping it in and going for a change,
controls it.
Holds on to the puck.
Outstanding play.
Holds on to it. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. I'm glad everybody appreciates this.
It was almost like that, like a long give and go between Reinhart and whoever it was that he rimmed that puck around to.
Anton Lindell.
Was it Lindell?
Yeah.
And then to give it right back, also, I don't know what TJ Brody is doing. I've never...
defensively, you're like, what is this?
Hold on, let's pause this. I want to come back to this because I was watching that game with my dad, and my dad coached hockey for over a decade. I obviously played my whole life. We were losing our minds watching Brody chase that puck behind the net.
Game.
I just want last thing on the technology. I don't think it has maybe as big of an impact overall as what we're talking about. But again, in the playoffs, you're talking about between the margins. I think about the iPads on the bench and just how quickly teams are able to make adjustments. Like a guy like Mikko Rantanen, he's in that iPad after most shifts, and he's looking at, okay, where did that break down? What did I miss? What didn't I see? Who was there? Who wasn't there? I didn't see that defender coming. Where was he? And it's just like this quick kind of understanding of like, oh, okay, they countered that play this way when I try to do it on that shift. When I go back out, if I get in that same situation, I'm not going to take that shot. I'm going to hold on to that puck, reverse it back up. And just the in-game adjustments it's unbelievable to watch now.
It's got to be pretty crazy to have the high camera angle of a shift you just took 30 seconds ago and be like, oh, this was what was happening.
And you can start and stop it, and you can circle. Yeah, it's got to be nuts, dude.
I can't even imagine. I can imagine starting my day off right with some athletic greens, though.
Yep.
I can't imagine you starting your day off with athletic greens.
Dude, I've needed it lately, to be honest. All right, look, these days you got NHL hockey all night.
Yeah.
You got the Counter-Strike Major all actual night, starting at 3 a.m.
A big deal.
You've got the new World of Warcraft patch to play all day.
This is a really hard life being Rudo.
It's tough. It's tough out here. Okay? I need my athletic greens to keep me going through all of this video gaming.
I spent all week going to bed at 8 o'clock because I didn't know what to do, but should have asked Rudo for advice.
Got stuff to do out here. And athletic greens is getting me through. You're right. You can take one scoop of it in your cup of water every morning. It gets you going. It gets your immune system boosted. A lot of athletes use it as part of their daily routine with workouts and things like that. You can check them out at athleticgreens.com/avalanche to order today. It's got 75 different probiotics, a bunch of different vitamins and minerals, all sorts of other good stuff like adaptogens, which if you ask me what those are, I'd tell you I don't know, but the doctors say it's good for me. Yeah.
Obviously.
Hannah leaves the house 4 days a week at 5:40 to go to a workout class. And
Why?
every morning, bro. Every morning she comes to say goodbye, and she's got her keys and her athletic greens. So at 5:40 in the morning, Hannah has deemed athletic greens are now imperative to her being able to get her day started. So
there you go. Someone who's actually healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, she's going to a workout class, and she's still you know what I need? Yep. I drink athletic greens, so I don't want to go work out. Give me an athletic greens. Yeah.
That's the way. Go check them out again, athleticgreens.com/avalanche today. When you order, you also get a year's supply of vitamin D just for buying.
Look, I wouldn't recommend mixing in a Mountain Dew, but
it would.
You
could
get
do
your
it.
vitamins.
Yeah,
all
it still counts. The sugar's probably not great for you, but
yeah.
Running a Mountain Dew with AG1.
That kind of a lemon flavor that I think might complement the Mountain Dew flavor.
So I've told you guys, we put a little sprinkle of a lemonade flavoring in there, and I actually really like it.
I do too.
So you're telling me to put it in a Starry, is what you're telling me.
That's not what I'm telling you, but if you put a splash of a Starry in there, I'll bet you would like it.
Jesse Montano said specifically. Check them out. Also, once you've got your AG1 in you, go join Volo. Use that. You got energy. You want to go play sports with your friends anyway. Volo is the place to do it. They're the biggest social sports company in the country. They've got literally hundreds of leagues here in Colorado. You name it, from Aurora on the east side all the way to Morrison. Is that? I think that's this side of the mountains. I mean, I grew up right next to it, so I know it's this side of the mountains. But
they were here yesterday having some extremely intense flip cup.
There you go. Competitive flip cup leagues if you want that. They got bowling, they got football, they got it all.
The BSN days, we'd have to go, we'd do our shows at Blake Street. Not every show, but we'd have shows at Blake Street. And every now and then we would walk in there and it would just be flip cup chaos. Yeah. And it was always Volo.
60 people wearing the same Volo shirt.
Yeah.
Playing flip cup.
Screaming about flipping. We're like, this is a BSN pod. I don't know what's happening back there.
Can we not be near them?
Yeah. Because they're always super loud, having fun, drinking, and having a blast.
Go check out Volo. You can use the QR code on screen or go to volosports.com. Code DNVR10 gets you $10 off. Best way to do it, get the Volo Pass. It's $20 a month or $200 a year, and you can literally drop into all of their sports anytime, whenever you want. You just show up, you play some whatever sport, and is this Flip Cup a sport? I guess.
Well, I know Flip Cup comes.
It's a game.
Flip Cup comes at the end of after you go play whatever.
Then you go play more
then you go
gaming
to
stuff, drinking with your buddies. Yeah.
I've never played Flip Cup.
You've
never played Flip
really?
Cup?
I've never played beer pong either.
What? That seems not that I'm out oh, have you never played beer? But that just seems improbable.
I'm not.
It's inescapable.
The Flip
I would
Cup
like to not have
surprises
played
me more than the beer pong thing.
Really? Oh, see, I'm the opposite. Beer pong is more surprising me because Flip Cup, I've been in rooms before where it's I don't want to play. But everyone's played beer pong.
Every party you go to, the list for beer pong's 18 teams deep, and it's
problem is that you're going to parties where they're making lists for beer pong. You just
that sounds like a pretty organized party. What's up with that?
What kind of? All right, I guess I only went to Ragers where if you didn't have a list, the table just gets overrun.
Cool guy, cool guy, Rudo. Only going to Ragers.
You know me.
If it's not a Rager, don't invite Rudo.
Anyway,
the extreme scale of cool to not cool. Having not played any of these games.
We know full well I fall
only
on the
goes
not
to Ragers,
cool side.
Way
Trust me.
cool. Super chill guy right here, Rudo.
No, hit up Volo, volosports.com /Denver today.
Project X was based on Rudo's high school experience.
Oh, God.
Did you guys ever see that movie?
I did. It was
horrific.
terrible.
It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Horrible movie.
I'd just like to apologize to Volo. This read has gone off the rails.
Yeah, Volo is great.
I was going to say, yeah. Well, this all started because you've never played beer pong. You need to join a Volo league, it sounds like.
What are you trying to say?
Second
So
period.
you need to join a Vola League so you can play some
of the
drinking games.
DNVR Avalanche
I just need
Podcast.
friends.
I know we'll get to the Florida stuff. I know that's what everyone wants to talk about. First, NHL draft lottery is tonight. We just talked about all the parity in the league. There's still a bunch of teams that are really bad in the NHL.
Oh,
See, and what's actually funny is I feel like the number of like really bad teams has shrunk, but they're way worse than they used to be.
When they're bad, they're bad.
Yeah, there's
It's crazy to watch. We talk about the emphasis on skill, and we talk about the emphasis on speed and puck and all these different things. And then you watch the bad teams, and they have none of it. And you're like, holy lordy, these guys are rough. You watch the Anaheim Ducks this year, and it was punishment.
so we had the conversation. I think we had the conversation on a show last week. I think it was the three of us where we talked about how it really does seem like though NHL GMs have, and I think this is part of what adds to the parity, have figured out you have to commit to a rebuild in this league. It's really hard to just kind of tread water.
Halfway through it, yeah.
And so you end up with these like hard bottom out Anaheim seasons, but it's all with like the vision of like we're bottoming out right now, and this is all very intentional. It was when you were talking about tanking, how front offices tank, teams on the ice don't.
Totally.
And how so like the front office builds that team where it's like, yeah, you know, we're lacking speed, we're lacking skill, we're lacking creativity, we're lacking all these other things, but it's all with the idea of in 2 years we're going to get a huge injection of it. And Anaheim is maybe a bad example of that because they have a ton of skill and just nothing else.
They have a ton of skill wrapped up in two players in Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras.
They're one player.
I like
Troy
like
Zegras.
those two guys, and then a bunch of really young, exciting kids
I like
that
Mason
are on
McTavish
the
a lot.
way.
Yeah.
I like McTavish.
Yeah,
I like
McTavish.
Drysdale.
I like Owen Zellweger. I like Jamie Drysdale. Like, there's a lot of talent on the way in Anaheim already, and if they get Connor Bedard, man, they're going to be a problem.
They're going to be a big problem.
This is why I'm very anti-Anaheim getting them.
Here's my problem with this. And I kind of think I already know Jesse and AJ's thoughts, so I want to get your thoughts on this, Megan. What do you do? And we're seeing the rules of this change a little bit when it comes to the draft lottery. The NHL's implemented a couple more things. What do you do when you have a team like Edmonton who seems like they finally come out of it, but we're bad for bordering on a decade, like worst in the league, bad over and over and over? When you have a team like Arizona that just can't seem to get themselves out of the depths of the basement, is there a solution there, or do teams just need to be better at their jobs?
Be better.
It does feel like there's misfortune wrapped up in this. Like, I look at the season Montreal had, and it was wrapped up in so much injury misfortune that I think it would have ended bad still, but not as bad as it did. But management absolutely plays a huge role in this too. With Edmonton, honestly, is like kind of an example of how I think getting out of this rut has been a lot of management based solution. So I do think be better, like AJ said.
So front offices need to be better.
Front office be better.
So I do think there has to be a little bit of luck involved.
Totally.
Because
Of course.
is everyone
When Arizona loses the lottery every single year.
Right. Like that is the one, like they had the best odds in the McDavid year and in the Matthews year. Like that's crummy luck. But can we all agree you need an elite player? Mm-hmm. Like to truly be a contender, you need at least one elite player.
Oh no, is this going to be the next clip from those Seattle fans?
Oh,
You need an
shit.
elite player.
Well, no, but what I was going to say
Guess who
was,
doesn't have one?
what I was going to say
Team
was
is up 2-1 in the second round.
it does help to win the lottery in the right year. Edmonton won it 4 out of 6 years, and they would eventually hit on one, right?
I mean, take the Avs as an example, right?
Yep.
When you have a year like the Avs did this year, elite players are what stabilize you.
Yeah,
they get
totally.
you through the nonsense, like Mikko Rantanen did for a lot of this year, like Nathan
100%.
McKinnon did for a lot of this year.
Now, that being said, you need a little bit of draft luck, and Arizona has had none.
Zero, dude.
So
The one thing is 2015, you do it to yourself.
Yeah. And
You have an all-time great draft class. You take Dylan Strome third.
oh, sure. Yeah.
In between Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner.
Totally.
No, even Noah Hannafin. You arguably take the worst player in the top 10 that year.
Totally. So
But also, the guy was unbelievable in junior.
I mean, they also, like, I know Barrett Hayton had a good year, but.
Yeah, I mean, you take Barrett Hayton over Quinn Hughes because you make the Dylan Strome mistake.
Yep. Right.
Because you're chasing a center at that point specifically. The same thing Montreal took Kotkaniemi because it was chasing a center instead of just taking Brady Tkachuk and getting out of the way.
So this is where you need a little bit of luck, but then you're totally right. Like you do have to follow the process correctly, and you have to do your due diligence. You have to hit on those picks. And where I think we've seen, I look back and I remember us actually all talking about it. I'm just verifying the year. It was 2020 when Arizona caught some lightning in a bottle. They were close and they lost their minds, and they went and added all kinds of guys. They trade for Taylor Hall. And that was one of those things where it was like, you're making a bad decision. You're making a short-term reward for the fans type of decision. And I'm not opposed to those types of moves, like when we saw Columbus do it. But when you've been on the outside looking in your entire existence, you can't afford to do that. And you have to, take some recognition and say, we have to stop. We have to slow down, and we have to go through a couple years where it's brutal. It's brutal. It's worse than it's ever been. That's how we're going to get out the other side. And it's when you see teams like, Minnesota, I'm trying to think of some of these other, Nashville, that have tried to go around doing it the right way by just trading and signing free agents, shit like that. That's how you just end up spinning your wheels. Find me the last Cup champ that the core wasn't built through homegrown talent.
And you're right, though. It takes decisions like parting an organization like the Avs, parting ways with a Ryan O'Reilly type of player who was part of the core in favor of building around something different, a different look. And it wasn't always clean living for the likes of Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog. They come into this team on some of its, difficult stages, the beginning of difficult stages. And that is then what this team is built around.
Duchesne.
And I think today, Duchesne, wow, that's a huge example.
Landeskog is an interesting one, too, because if you remember in his draft here, the Avs gets the second pick. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is the center. He goes first, okay? Fine. They've got the second pick, though, and there's a number of guys there. Jonathan Huberdeau just had an insane season in St. John's in the QMJHL. He had an unbelievable second half. They go on a Memorial Cup run, et cetera, right? And there's Gabe Landeskog there. Adam Larson is also there. They don't have a top-flight D in their organization. They don't have a top-flight center in their organization in a draft class.
Flight, they don't have any D in their organization
at
that point.
But you're talking about. I mean, they would take one with. They would.
I know.
They thought they were taking one with Duncan
Turns out
Siemens.
they got him in the third round
because they had two pick. They had picks 2 and 11 that year. They thought that they were
didn't work
they
out.
Were going to,
a whole different topic. For
what I'm saying is they take the guy in Landeskog who had maybe the lowest ceiling of the guys in that draft class, but he had insane intangibles. And there was a focus on leadership and being able to take them into a different element and having a face of their franchise. And he was a guy that could contribute right away, but was going to be the worst NHL player. And if you look at that draft class, it bore some fruit. You have Mark Scheifele and Sean Couturier and guys like that come from that same top 10. There were some great players there, but they prioritized. They took the wing, is what I'm saying.
Yep.
They didn't go chasing a position. They said, this is a guy that we think is
that fits.
Just the most important all-around fit to our organization. He's going to do the most for us. And would you have loved to have seen what the Avs could have done with Sean Couturier or Mark Scheifele? In that era when they had all this, when they had Ryan O'Reilly and they had Paul Stastny and they had Matt Duchesne, they were in the position where they could take the wing. They didn't have to chase.
It's not a topic that we're going to get fully into today, but
this is the mistake.
I was going to say this is a good point,
mistake that teams make is they get there and they say they go chasing. We need a center, so we're going to take Barrett Hayton over Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
And look, Barrett Hayton is finally growing up and he's starting to break out, and it looks like he might be a pretty productive NHL player. But to a man, do you think that the Arizona Coyotes today would rather have Barrett Hayton?
No. They would rather
or
have
Quinn Hughes.
10 times out of 10.
Give me a break here.
Yeah.
So these are important decisions, and they have shaped the league. And I have said this a few times, but the draft lotto tonight is a pivotal moment for the league because it is going to reshape the NHL over the next 10 years. This is such a top-heavy draft with so many high-quality players at the top of it that the top 6 picks could all be considered of some caliber a franchise-level player, either a franchise changer. You know, Bedard is a generational player. There's a couple of guys after that are probably franchise players. And then you have franchise building blocks that are very, very good, like a Sebastian Aho level of guy. A guy that you could comfortably build around for a long time, who should be really, really, really good.
We may need to come up with a new word other than generational, because our generation has had like 4 of these guys now.
It's just because people overuse that word.
Yeah, it's because people get really hung up on it. But Connor Bedard is.
I do think
Connor Bedard is the best prospect
prefer
since Connor McDavid.
Transcendent talent, perhaps.
Yeah, and Connor McDavid was the best since
Crosby.
Crosby.
So that's what I'm just saying. Like I feel like for me, what I consider my generation is I've had Ovi, Crosby, McDavid, and now Bedard. It's like, damn, sick generation.
Well, and I think you bring up Ovi, and you have a really interesting conversation there because you talk about the lotto. You need to win. You need to get lucky in a lotto year. Well, how do you feel? You know, Anaheim takes Bobby Ryan second after Sidney Crosby. Yeah, well, Washington and Pittsburgh get Evgeny Malkin and Alex Ovechkin 1-2. They don't care who wins that one.
Right.
You come out with a world class Hall of Fame player, no matter what happens there.
All right, let's reel it back into the playoffs here. We've gone off the rails.
It shapes all of this.
Well, we weren't talking about playoffs. We were talking about the lottery in the bottom half of the league and struggling at the draft.
Now we're moving on.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Just stop a conversation mid-sentence to change topics, I guess.
We've been talking in circles for 10 minutes about this.
I think it's interesting.
We're moving on. And we're moving on because I've got a DraftKings pick of the week for you. I don't really have a pick of the week. I have a question that I'm going to pose to you.
You won't get to answer it, though. You only get to answer half.
No, you get to answer for 10 minutes. And if you haven't come up with it...
You said 10 minutes. I get 10 minutes. You said it.
You get 10 minutes to answer this question.
I gotta go.
June 1st. Does
date,
Kyle Dubas have a job?
Yeah.
June 1st?
June 1st.
April, May, June. Yeah, Pittsburgh will hire him by then, right?
He honestly, fair point. I don't at all think he's going to be
if they let him go.
Toronto moves on from him, I don't think he's going to be out there for long.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be, and rightfully so, I think he's really, really good at what he does. And I think there's going to be an organization that snatches him up and he'll do well for that organization. Will he win them a cup? I don't know, man. But I'm also going with yes, but I think it's in another city.
But not in Toronto, Megan.
That's interesting. I mean, I was going to say I think he remains in Toronto, but I don't hate this idea of if they move on from him, he still has a job.
Well, we need to get into that series next because I have all kinds of shit to say.
This is a tough second round. But they did slay the first round dragon.
Next question. If they win 0 games in round 2, were they even really in round 2?
Wait, is this a read? I can't tell if this is a read or not. I don't know how much to interrupt.
This is a read,
okay,
but you can interrupt all you want.
It is a read?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how to read.
You buried the lead too well on
that you
these
can read
things.
chat. If you want to go for some money, you know what? You can pick Florida to sweep Toronto in this game 4 coming up. You get pretty good odds on that. You get way better odds 2 games ago, but you still get pretty good odds on it for them to finish the sweep against Toronto. Go over to DraftKings Sportsbook. Use the DNVR code when you sign up. You bet $5 on any NBA playoff game. You win the bet. You get $150 in free bets, which you can spend on superfluous, crazy pools like whether you think Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe will get fired or whether something else crazy will happen in the NHL offseason. I don't know.
Very specific.
Weird stuff. I forget. I can't even name
Lots of prop
some of the
bets
coaches
out there.
Yeah. Well, who will Bruce Boudreau get hired this offseason?
Joe Quimbo.
A lot of options. A lot of options out there. Do it with DraftKings, whatever you bet on. Doesn't even have to be hockey. You must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See the show notes down below for details. you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700, and it's all void in Ohio. Also void in Ohio, illegal Pete's, because Ohio's not allowed to have nice things.
Oh.
The illegal Pete's isn't in Ohio. It's here in Colorado. There's 10 different locations here, so you should go get it here, including one just a couple blocks from the DNVR bar. So you can go grab yourself a burrito. You can come down here. You can watch whatever sports you're feeling, whether it's we had our F1 watch party the other day. Mm-hmm. We had obviously the Nuggets games that are still going on in the playoffs, which are crazy watch parties too. Mm-hmm. Either way, Illegal Pete's is the place to hit. Before that, they have happy hour from 3 to 6 p.m., so it rolls nicely into whatever you're doing here at the bar. Check them out. Get a delicious burrito today at Illegal Pete's. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. All right.
Does Ohio even exist is going to age horribly by 6 p.m. tonight if they end up winning the lottery.
Yeah, Columbus, very good chance to do that.
Did you see me just hit myself in the face with this?
Mm-hmm. I was just gonna let it go.
Were you acting out the series
No,
that
I
Toronto played?
Basically.
Look, it's the team to talk about right now. Are the Florida Panthers the favorite to win the Cup today? If you had to pick a team today?
No.
No? Is it the Vegas-Edmonton series for you?
It's still Edmonton.
Okay.
But I think it could be Edmonton, Florida.
I refuse to give Carolina credit.
Who are
I
they?
refuse.
The conversation, like the national conversation around this series has been so interesting. And really just these whole playoffs, it's just been a nice reminder to me, or maybe a lesson, I don't know what but like market size means something. Because like Seattle is a bigger sports market than Colorado just by the numbers, than Denver just by the sheer numbers. So a lot of the national attention was, look at this upset by Seattle. And then in Boston, it was, look how hard Boston fell apart. And now it's, oh, what's happening to Toronto? And like no one will talk about the Panthers and the fact that they're playing phenomenal hockey. We talked about it at the end of the week last week. They're a really, really scary playoff team because they have that like underdog Cinderella story mentality where they're just kind of like playing fast and loose and house money. Yet they have really high-end elite talent like at the top of the roster. They won a President's Trophy last year. Like they're just a team that when we talked about it on the show last week, like not did we sleep on them of like, oh, people just forgot about Florida, but like, fuck, maybe we all just forgot that this was a really, really, really good team one season ago.
We just watched the first 60 games of the season where they were so
a team
mediocre.
That's squeaked into the playoffs in the last 2 days of the season.
Yeah.
That took Pittsburgh losing to Chicago to get in.
To get them in. Well, and then, so here's the part where the conversation does get really interesting about Toronto, and we were talking about Dubas and Sheldon Keefe. So they win the first round series, and everyone's, it kind of feels like, oh, okay, now you can breathe. And there's been a track record of teams in the past that once they finally break through that wall, that they're unstoppable. The Avs last year, Washington is the other one a couple years before that, they finally beat Pittsburgh and you just knew they weren't going to lose the rest of the way. And I said, reverse, when we were doing our prediction videos, I said, I would love to pick Florida because of the big emotional boost that they're going to get coming out of that series if they weren't playing against Toronto, who was also coming off a big emotional boost. Right now, it looks like I had those flipped where it's like, damn, that's too bad that Toronto happens to break through the wall. And they're going to run into another team that is very good on this huge emotional high.
We also had that exact conversation of, would you be surprised if Toronto fell apart? And we were like, no.
Right.
Of course not.
And this is where I do think it comes back to Dubas and Keefe. They break through. If they lose in 4 or if they lose in 5 back on home ice, I think both those guys are gone. Their contracts aren't being renewed.
I think Keefe's gone for sure.
Because really, if they don't win a cup, I think Keefe is gone. Like I think even if they come back in this series and then lose next round, I think Keefe is gone. But if you get out of the first round, you finally slay that demon. If you get swept by wild card 2 in the second round, it basically means nothing.
It's tough because the context of that wild card 2 matters here because of what Florida is. And I don't think Toronto's falling apart in this second round either. I think Florida is just so experienced and geared for playoffs, very well constructed. Because, one, Toronto experiencing a Samsonov injury, game 3, is bad news. Honestly, this is where things really kind of, I think it's a deflating moment in that game. And you look at the construction of these teams side by side, and I still think Toronto's well constructed in other ways, but the goaltending was already a question mark. That definitely is a concern. But you look at even just the scoring production of each. Florida's scoring is what has surprised me the most. Toronto has 6 players that have 5 or more points in these playoffs, with the heavy lifting being done by who you would expect, Matthews, Marner, Riley. Florida has 10 different players with 5 or more points, but they're also having Tkachuk and Verhaeghe doing the heavy lifting. And what I like about them is their commitment. They are engaged shift by shift, full effort, and they're a good second period team. No matter what happens in the first period, they always lock it down, at least through, I mean, we're early into these playoffs, but this is where I see the experience shine through, and this is where I see them close out games with a play like what Reinhart did in the OT winner. It required experience, patient, high IQ, highly skilled play that I think comes from experience too. And that's where I think this Florida group, it took me a little bit by surprise, and it all points back to experience.
Well, and what you said there at the start, Megan, is actually why if I'm Toronto, I'm really concerned about what's happening, because I agree with you. I don't think the wheels are coming off of Toronto at all. I just think they're getting outplayed, and that's a problem for how much tinkering you've done to this lineup. Now, being down to just Samsonov and not having, well, I mean, I don't know how much better you feel about Matt Murray. And now potentially being down to Wall. Is it Jacob or Joseph? Joseph Wall. Yeah, now you're at a point where it does feel kind of crappy. I said 30 seconds before that puck goes in last night, I was watching it with my dad, and I said, God, he's having a really hard time tracking pucks. I said, that's the third time I've seen him. You just kind of see him make himself big because he loses it, and then he completely lost it on that Reinhart play behind the net. Yeah. So, that is a point of concern, but I actually agree with you. I just think they're just getting beat, and that's the concerning part if I'm Toronto.
For the record, games 1 and 2, Toronto does a pretty fair amount of outplaying them, and Bobrovsky is your equalizer there. And then in game 3, Toronto went away.
And this is my ace in the hole for Florida. On any given night, you could look down and that ace could be a 2. But historically, we know Bobrovsky can play at that level. Mm-hmm. You get a lucky month and a half out of him.
Right. He's won 2 Vezinas. Like if you get that stretch.
He's had a really underrated and weird career. Yeah. Because he has a couple Vezinas, but he's also ever since he got to Florida, everybody's like, you gave him what kind of contract?
Yeah.
But also this was a guy that was like a nothing, had this insane start in Philadelphia. Yeah. And then was left for dead and resurrected in Columbus. And it's just, he's such an unreliable, if there's anything that makes you nervous about Florida, it's that guy.
He's peaks and valleys only.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's no middle.
It's crazy that guy is, it's so drastic with him.
And then the goaltending with Toronto.
Yeah.
It is the one thing that
I don't know.
We had this conversation at the beginning of the year, and I feel the same way about Toronto as I do with Edmonton, that I really do just think that it's, look, if you have bad injury luck and you get down to your third goalie, there's nothing you can do about that. Everybody's third goalie sucks. You know what I mean? I get that, and that's maybe the situation they're at now. But we said all year, the 4 of us sat here on different shows, different moments, different games, different weeks, whatever, and said it's just shocking to me that both in massively pivotal seasons for the franchise, Edmonton and Toronto were willing to roll the dice in net. Fully roll the dice. Darcy Kemper, people looked at as the Avs kind of rolling the dice, but that dude had an entire career that said, it's a pretty safe bet. Philip Grubauer had a career that said, this is a pretty safe bet. Both those teams went with goaltenders that they were like, the history isn't great, but we'll try.
Well, Toronto goes with 2 of them.
Right.
And Edmonton kind of goes with 2 of them. The guy that they paid all the money to is not playing for the bench.
Right. Yeah.
Which
I know people are loving the Stuart Skinner story, but it's that's actually a bad situation.
Well, yeah, it's like if you felt like that guy, If you felt like that guy was there, then you should have gone and gotten like a Samsonov for
Right,
like
right,
$1 million.
right.
What the hell are you doing?
Going 5x5, and now you're hoping
This
that
is the number one reason I don't want Edmonton to win the cup is because all of the dumb shit that they have done.
Oh yes,
That they have done where they're gonna, if they win a Stanley Cup, it's gonna get rewarded, and I don't want that.
bro.
And I don't want to feel that way about two unbelievably transcendent talents in McDavid and Draisaitl.
For over a decade, the Edmonton Oilers have
hate that
stepped on every
organization.
rake that has been placed in front of them, and somehow they're like, "What? Huh? We're the Stanley Cup favorite?" It's like,
Yeah.
how?
And it's like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl just keep getting better, and it's like, stop,
right.
stop,
Leon,
please.
at this point, Leon Draisaitl is like
Yeah.
single-handedly.
What is this version of Draisaitl? Like, we saw him glued together by rubber bands in the Western Conference Final. So to be fair, I shouldn't be surprised by this at all. It's just like a whole new level.
Well, but I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. Whenever their game 2 was against Vegas, and I said I tweeted out. I said I keep saying McDavid to Draisaitl on the power play, like that cannot continue to be a winning
And
formula.
yet?
And here we are. Like maybe it is. Maybe it is. They're almost at They're almost at a 70% clip on the power play.
How does the team
after
not
game
just
2.
sell out to be
Yeah,
like,
right.
we're not allowing this bullshit?
And
Leon
like,
Draisaitl is not
Like,
beating us.
Zach
Anyone
Hyman and
else.
Evander Kane
Yeah.
can sit in front of the
Yeah.
net by them damn selves.
Right.
We are not allowing this to happen.
Because, like, as much as I do think that their depth chipped in more than we've seen in the past in that first round, like, it's still extremely top heavy.
Leon Draisaitl has 13 goals and we're in the second round. The NHL record is 20.
Yeah, it's just crazy that two players continue to get away with this, and I'm with you. I don't want to see an organization rewarded for such incompetence, but they happen to back. And by the way, Draisaitl's like what, 3rd overall?
Yeah.
It's nice to see the Oilers get some luck at the draft, eh?
Yeah.
A
No shit,
superstar
dude.
player falls in their lap at
they
3.
have 4 first overall picks, and then the 3rd overall pick is the one that
Is killing
elevates
for
them.
them.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Give me a. All right, now that we're talking about this, I'm getting
Hey,
salty.
new
And
Total
oh, by the
100-point
way,
season. All
he
right.
turned out to be,
salty about
he turned out
this.
to kind of be a bust. But Jesse Puljujarvi, that was also like he was the consensus number 2, and then Montreal goes off or Columbus goes off the board, and it's like, how much more could this horribly incompetent organization just continue to back their way into good fortune? And it's the number one reason why it's my only tinfoil hat. You will never convince me the NHL draft lottery isn't rigged. That the NHL puts players where they want to put them to help certain markets.
So you saw that NHL tweet today, right?
No.
Where they tweeted out Philadelphia winning the draft lottery.
No way. Did they really?
Yeah, they tweeted it out
it was
with
an
him holding.
accident?
They tweeted out him holding the card with the Flyers logo on it, and it got deleted.
Oh boy.
And so if the Flyers win it tonight, the script talk is going to get taken to another level.
Oh shit! I didn't see that.
I did not see that
Oh,
either.
I was going to ask us to put on our
Hey,
tinfoil
is it
hats
better?
and guess
What if the
who.
Flyers
so again,
lose?
I'm going with Philly.
Well, yeah,
Dibs
yeah.
on the Flyers.
But so now, like if it is Philly, this will further because that's a bigger market, East Coast, like
And a team that doesn't want to rebuild.
right, and a team that doesn't want to rebuild, and it's an important franchise to the NHL. There's a lot of history there, and like so if it does go that way, like, see, you know what I mean, like, but. All of this, I'm with you.
Oh,
on
was it not a
Edmonton.
real tweet? Okay, cool. I got.
Okay, all right.
You got Dr. Grittied.
Hey,
I don't know what that means, but I'm cool to get got because this is what happens when you take a social media break and you're not on it literally all day
Oh,
anymore.
did Gritty tweet it or something?
I'm assuming
some
You got
Philly
Dr.
fan
Gritty
account.
is what that says.
I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming it's like a Flyers drill.
Well, I was gonna say like the Gritty tweeting that from like the Gritty account would make sense. That would be funny.
Yeah, I mean it was just a screenshot of an NHL tweet.
Either
So-
way.
So good.
Back to these playoffs.
Okay.
I didn't have
This
to reel
ruins,
you
this
in
ruins
that
all
time.
the fun that we would have had.
I know. Well, we started talking about Edmonton and it
I
just
wanted
got
the
me.
script.
Well, dude, hey, if Philly does win tonight,
Great moment in history.
Dr. Gritty scriptwriter confirmed.
Dr.
yeah.
Yeah,
Gritty.
exactly.
He's pulling the
Bro,
strings.
the writer strike is going on, so they are bringing in new people. Dr. Gritty is apparently available for hire.
but no, it's crazy to watch
Living in a world where Dr. Gritty.
Draisaitl and McDavid
Just exists.
continue to just drag Edmonton,
Do it
kicking and
Herculean
screaming.
things.
Yeah, because like honestly, like straight up, we were talking about like Stuart Skinner has not been good in these postseason. Like he
Yeah,
has
I
not
mean-
been good in these playoffs.
I hold on. No, we need to go back to this rigged thing
What about it?
because I can buy it with Sidney Crosby
Yeah.
going
Oh,
to
that
Pittsburgh.
was. Give me a break with that.
100%. I don't understand why they would put a generational player in Edmonton to go rot.
Like,
Well, because they had already given them 3 other kicks.
yeah,
at the
yeah.
fucking can.
They were
That
like,
makes
we
it-
tried to bring back the Gretzky and Messier glory days 3 times. You get one last
Yeah,
shot
that's
at
too
this.
many. That like when they could go put that player in LA or New York and like boost their profile way better
No,
than
see,
Edmonton.
What Bettman was trying to get rid of the anti-Canadian narrative.
Oh my god!
So he gave McDavid and Matthews
Dude, how tall is
to
this tinfoil
Canadian
hat?
to
I mean,
Canadian markets and back to back. I don't believe any
Bro,
of this,
bro,
dude. I think this is all stupid.
Are you really going to say that Toronto isn't, as much as people hate it, the most important market in the NHL?
No, of course it is.
Yeah. So
Edmonton
them wanting a
isn't.
superstar
It's
there.
among them.
In
Yeah.
Toronto, you can sell me on the Matthews one.
Yeah.
I'm here for that. It's the McDavid one that I don't think is.
It's the McDavid and Gretzky thing.
just don't-
Yeah, so
it's
they were staring down the barrel of Buffalo or Arizona, where you're like, eh.
All right, so if you're going this far, should we take it a step further and just say that Taylor Hall's the script writer and he just writes the first overall pick for his team all the time? Like,
That was just somebody's like Easter egg that just they just kept writing it in.
Yeah.
and the team with Taylor Hall gets the first overall pick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
can't believe they
trying to
took it
see-
again this year. Nah.
Trying to see how long it would take till somebody caught on.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Well, and
Oh my god.
And then he went to Arizona and they were like, this can't happen.
literally, they won the draft lottery, and like the first commercial break was like the great one, the next one, how the Edmonton Oilers. It's like they already had the nicknames written out. They had this promo cut together for this shit. Yeah, I don't know. It's just the draft lottery is the one thing, and maybe they don't even rig it every year. But when they need a player to go to a certain place,
I love this idea that they just like pick and choose years to rig. Like last year, they were like, who cares?
yeah. They're like, we don't give a fuck.
This is a down year. We'll give it to Montreal. We'll
Yeah.
give them a cookie. It's
Yeah.
in Montreal.
Well, no, we'll just
Great
let-
story, great story.
We'll let the chips fall where they may to maintain plausible deniability.
Yeah.
But then as soon as the right guy comes through, like, that'd be really helpful in Toronto.
So
Let's pull some
Whoa.
levers.
My thought is that it's someone in the NHL that hates Gary Bettman.
Not to mention, there's also the year, was it the McDavid year? Where the one ball came up and they just threw it out and took the second one. And the first one would have been, one of the smaller markets. Like, nah, not that one. This ball is the one that actually came
Oh,
up.
Buffalo?
Yeah.
My bad.
Edmonton, can you believe it? It's like, what the fuck?
No, but
Ohio, that's not real.
Yeah. The guy basically just tossed it over his shoulder. He stopped just shy of like.
could you imagine if like he just kept throwing like 3 balls away? Like that's not Edmonton. That's not Edmonton.
Completely, yeah.
Oh my God, it's the
Completely
Oilers.
random. Right. Because
love
like, and
this.
that's I think that's why they went to the number system. Because like, who's gonna verify that watching live on TV? The numbers that can like.
I can't believe they were just decided they were like, this needs to be way more complicated.
Right.
You know,
I don't get what happened to pull the ping pong ball with the logo.
Yeah, like really. And now you've got
Because
like,
then they
this- it
couldn't
happens in
spend a
private
week saying,
room, and now they have the
well,
cards
Toronto
and-
had the highest odds after 3
Right,
numbers.
right.
Anyway.
Plausible deniability to make it more complicated than you can understand.
Yeah, we'll talk more about this tomorrow
Anyway,
because
about
it'll be
that
after the
playoff
draft
series.
lottery.
Yeah.
Just the playoffs in general. I know it sucks the Avs aren't in it, and this is an Avs podcast, and all of you are Avs fans, but
pretty good with it at this point.
these I'm same, and it helps that these playoffs have been awesome.
Yeah, they have been. They've been great. Like, honestly, I was talking about this, maybe it was even with you guys off air, how, like, it does suck for Avs fans because what a storyline, eh? Like, Seattle, second year of
Well, that's the
expansion,
thing, like, I'm
coming
trying
in
to
a
get
wild
upset
card
about
spot.
this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be mad and salty and like get the proper hate boner for Seattle. And I'm just like, this is a great story, and I love watching them play.
Right. Knock off
just-
the defending Cup
fine.
champs,
It's
Game
fine.
7, electric. I've talked to you guys all about this off air. Like, electric atmosphere in Seattle.
And that's
great
a great
crowd.
It's a great sports town, man.
Great
I
sports
just
town.
I can't hate Seattle.
Like
I just-
everything about this is like if for Avs fans, it's like If it was any other team, you would love this and you'd be openly
it'd be
rooting for
amazing.
them.
My only thing is I don't want Kraken fans to turn into what Vegas fans turned into.
Please don't.
They got that taste of success and felt entitled to it, and it was just like now everybody hates Vegas for a reason. So
I think them
if our
having a
guy
really
Sergeant
bad
Pickles
first
is
year.
watching, man, please don't.
I think since they had a really bad first year, and like I even talking to people in Seattle, they said that I guess by the end of last year, like it was tough. Like engagement was way down. Mariners were in full swing. And that's a big Mariners town.
Yeah.
Well, and the Mariners were they ended up good. They didn't start so hot last year,
Yeah.
but
So the Mariners
was
had a
hype.
good backstretch. They made the playoffs for the first, and they won a round for the first time in 20 something years.
they had I think the longest one of the longest playoff droughts in
Pro sports.
North American.
Yeah.
Pro sports. Weird that both the Mariners and Kings ended it within a year of each other.
I will say,
Sabres
and I said this to one of you the other day, my one pang of regret here is
I would like that.
it looks
I'm
like
all about
Florida and Carolina are on a collision course for the Eastern Conference Final, and I'm looking at those two teams coming out of the East, and I'm like, boy, the Avs could have done it.
Bro, well, right. I mean, like that was my
Colorado,
thing.
Florida final. Do you remember
Yeah.
those two regular season games? Those games were great.
They were
I saw
baller.
someone way at the beginning of the show trying to dunk on me for saying the Avs could be a dangerous team in the playoffs.
Yeah. Cool, man.
And-
Next
and-
time we'll let you do all the
Next time
prognosticating.
I'll
and you can go ahead and predict that an Avs player disappears through the series and that Cale Makar gets suspended. Yeah, go ahead, man. Predict the future. It's real easy, my man.
But like this was, I was on with Romy Bean the night before the playoffs started, and this was what I laid out. I was like, look, as with every run, things have to go right. I was like, but if the Avs, and I said if the Avs can stay healthy, which duh.
They did not.
If they could have stayed healthy and you could have gotten these guys back and Valentushkin doesn't disappear and all that stuff, I was like, there's a path. And then the East is just going to be such a bloodbath that you have no idea what's coming out the other side of that. I was like, even with the way this season has gone, and I stand by this to this day with the Avs out of the playoffs, there was a path.
No,
like,
dude, absolutely.
There was a path back to to repeating for even this version of the Avs group. Just everything fell apart.
Yep.
Over the course of 5 days, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it's going to be crazy. I think we're going to end up with a Stanley Cup final that nobody expected. And if it's Vegas, Florida, I'm going to try to get a Stanley Cup final credential and just go bounce back and forth between two dope-ass cities for 2 weeks.
Oof.
Maybe I'll do games 1 through 4.
Do the Vegas
Do the one
games.
travel each time.
Just
yeah.
do the Vegas games.
I'd go to Florida. I like Florida in small doses.
You gotta go to Sunrise though.
Yeah, you're not wrong. If it was back in Tampa,
Oh, for sure.
no one would be able to stop me. I'd just be going. I'd be like, yeah, I'm covering this or something.
Okay. It's been fun. It is the draft lotto night, so we'll definitely talk some draft for you guys tomorrow. It should be the start of a lot of draft coverage.
We
and
might
a
as well
lot
just start our draft coverage tomorrow.
Right,
We're
that's
gonna
what I'm
get into
saying.
it.
That's
We
what
might
I'm
as well just
saying.
do it,
We should
man.
just start it. So that's probably what you have coming forward. The Avs do have a first round pick for now this year, so we'll be talking a lot about that too. It should be fun. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
We have a super chat.
Oh, we do. Yes.
Wow.
$5 from Vaguely Sober, who says that Malinsky article was fire. Megan wrote that one yesterday. It came out. Go read it if you haven't yet. It's fantastic stuff from her.
Thank you, vaguely.
Boom. Yeah. All right. I guess we're out of here. We appreciate all y'all a ton. We're still live 5 days a week. Rain, snow, sleet, shine. Honestly, we're probably more consistent than the USPS at this point.
Studio or StreamYard.
Oh, that's cool.
Nailed it. Also, change my name to Rudo. I can't stand looking at my actual
Take
name.
us out of here, Nathan.
Bye.